Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. The Browns getting ready for another media availability for OTAs tomorrow. Ken Dorsey, offensive coordinator, talked about the importance of getting the wide receivers and the quarterbacks on the same page in this offensive scheme.
It takes reps, it takes them talking about it, it takes watching film. There's so many different aspects of, not only those routes, but a lot of different routes within the system. So, to answer your question, there's a lot of communication there. When we had Cole in Buffalo, there was an adjustment period, and getting on the same page. Like that first year was like, oh, is this gonna work? Because it just takes time for quarterback and receiver to get on the same page on some of those field routes.
With that, let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, the question was about choice routes, and let's take it even more globally. I know you wrote an article. Do you think Deshaun Watson can advance to do an offense versus defensive drills? Will they have a passing camp? And how important is that? It's a new offense with some new receivers, and timing and choice routes they're important for a feel for each other.
It really is important, and that's why, just to hear Ken Dorsey talk about that, how it even took Cole Beasley, a very seasoned veteran, some time to figure out exactly what this was all about and how you handle these choice routes. It leads me to believe that some of these younger Browns receivers are going to have a little bit of a learning curve with this, maybe even more so than we anticipated. And I do think it's probably a little bit challenging to try to get that down when you don't have your quarterback able to throw the ball against the defense, when that is exactly when you make those choices. That's where you have your options. And Jameis Winston last week was talking about the fact that they do have a defense that is giving them all different kinds of looks so that they can get their choice routes down. So the defense is really trying to help the offense here. But Deshaun's not part of that. He will be soon. Might not be till training camp, though. I don't know if his surgeon is actually going to let him take it up a notch next week in training camp.
And you certainly understand, him being healthy is important. Do you think they do a passing camp or something like that to try to work on that?
Well, this would be the third year in the row that Deshaun Watson hosts a passing camp for his offensive teammates. We know that they went to the Bahamas the first year. They went to Puerto Rico last year, and they're going somewhere again this year. It might be Miami. I've been hearing rumblings about that, but I do believe they will do one, and that should help him. But still, once again, you're not really throwing against the defense that much. That's just taking your offensive guys, trying to get your timing down, trying to get your bonding and your camaraderie down. And so I can't honestly say that that's going to advance them that much, but it certainly won't hurt.
You also wrote an article just about Jameis Winston and how he's kind of getting a feel for this offense because he's had to take Deshaun Watson's reps.
He really is. I mean, he's getting tons and tons of reps, and he's learning. He will be ready to throw these choice routes, probably even more so than Deshaun will be in the early going. Although Deshaun ran this kind of an offense in Houston, so he will be up on it. But Jameis is certainly getting well-versed in all things Ken Dorsey offense, and he's really figuring things out. And he looks really good. I led my story by the fact that he showed up at the mic stand with no shoes on his feet and a big smile on his face. And he's talking about grounding and getting sunshine and being happy and grateful and all those kinds of things. So he really is acclimating well. He's fitting in here very, very well. And I think he's been good for Deshaun.
Yeah, the opinion in the regard he held Ken Dorsey, and you could tell he likes Ken Dorsey and how he's coaching the offense. And that's not something you can fake. I mean, Jameis Winston, he likes what's going on with Ken Dorsey.
Yeah, and he's been around for a long time. So he knows what it's like to be coached by a really, really good coach. He knows that Ken knows what he's talking about. And he also knows that Ken Dorsey has worked with two other really big armed quarterbacks like himself. So he knows how to coach up a guy like that. He obviously worked with Cam Newton. He worked with Josh Allen. Now those guys are completely different because they're mobile quarterbacks, but still, just in terms of a big guy with a big arm, he knows what to do with a guy like Jameis Winston. And you can see that Jameis is coming along out there, and I think he's going to have a really nice camp.
So this is from one of your Hey Mary case. If Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills, DeJuan Jones are all healthy the second half of the year, who starts when it's getting near playoff time?
It's a really good question, and I don't think we know the answer to that yet. I think they will put the best guys on the field, and I mean, that's what they're going to do. So the two best players to help you win football games when it comes to December and January are the players that are going to be out there. That's just the bottom line. That's how it's going to work. And so we'll just have to see how that goes. We don't know where Jack is going to be in his rehab early on in the season. And Jed's not quite out there yet. The furthest along is DeJuan Jones from these knee surgeries. So I think it's good that they have all three. I think they will end up using all three tackles.
So I know you wrote an article, and I'm curious. Mike Vrabel and what you saw from him and how hands-on he's been out at these OTAs.
He's been incredibly hands-on, not just with the defense, but also with the special teams and the offense. He's helping Bubba Ventrone on all things special teams, including implementation of the new kickoff rules, which nobody has any idea where this is going, how they're going to have to cover it, how they're going to have to return it, how they're even going to have to kick it, or who's going to kick it. I mean, it is just a big set of unknowns, and you can hear that all across the league. Nobody really knows what to expect, and it's going to be a little bit of an adventure. So Mike Vrabel is helping out in that respect. And then offensively, I watched him work with the quarterbacks, stand there and watch everything the quarterbacks were doing. I watched him talking one-on-one with Jameis Winston. I watched him giving looks for the offensive line and kind of serving as a pass rusher and dropping into coverage a little bit. He's getting down and dirty in there. So he's really helping in every way possible. He's a joy to have around everybody. It seems like everybody's loving having him here, and it's been a great addition to the team.
Also, from your Hey Mary case, what do you think the long-term, what are the long-term plans for Mike Vrabel then?
I think Mike Vrabel is going to be a head coach again sometime soon. Now, the thing with head coaches, sometimes they fall out of the cycle a little bit and people forget about them, and you move on to the next hottest hand or the next hottest coordinator. But teams would be foolish not to seriously consider Mike Vrabel as their next head coach, regardless of what happens this year, because he's an excellent, excellent head coach. And I really think that any team would really be lucky to have him. Now, if he doesn't get a head coaching job, I know the Browns will keep him around as long as he wants to be here, but I think there probably will be something better for him down the road, unless, I mean, you never know. Maybe Jim Schwartz will be ready to hang it up soon and he ends up as the defensive coordinator here. I don't know how that will go. We have no indication or no sign of that whatsoever, but he's not destined yet to be a career senior advisor. Too young, too good.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm surprised he did not get a head coaching job in this coaching cycle as well. I thought he would. That shocked me. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, love the show, long-time viewer. Just have a couple questions. Extensions, I know that we've got some guys who are coming up, but who do you think the most important extension should be? In my opinion, I think JOK should get extended, and I also think Myles Garrett should get an extension and get a reworked contract. He is the reigning defensive player of the year, and now they've got wide receivers getting contracts making more money than Myles Garrett. So my question is, who do you think the Browns should focus on giving extensions to, or who's next, do you think? Because I believe JOK deserves an extension, and I believe Myles deserves an extension. And do you think that Jed Wilson is going to get an extension? Love to hear your guys' thoughts. Go Browns. Woo, woo, woo.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, just your thoughts. Who do you think? Who do you think's the next that they're going to extend?
I certainly think that JOK is someone that they would like to extend. We saw that he took a big step up last year. He's flourishing in Jim Schwartz's defense. Now, you wonder, why would they do him before they do Greg Newsome? Well, Greg Newsome had his fifth-year option picked up, so he's locked up through 2025, and they don't have a sense of urgency there. They can let that one play out a little bit. But JOK is heading into the final year of his rookie contract, and he is certainly someone that they want to keep around for a long time. They're very proud of the way that he's come along, the way that he's playing, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is actually one of the offseason extensions that happen. There won't be many, but I think he will be one. There's a couple of other guys that should be up for extensions, but I don't know if they're going to happen this offseason. I think some of these guys might extend into the season, and that would be Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper. Maybe not with Amari. I'm not sure. We haven't seen him around for OTAs. We'll see if he shows up there tomorrow when we're out there. Certainly he'll be here for minicamp next week, or at least he's expected to be. But he's someone that, maybe they will turn around and extend him. I don't believe it's imminent right now, but he is somebody I know that they would like to have around.
So you wrote an article about this, and I'm curious. Take us through it. The Browns got Jerry Jeudy at about half of Justin Jefferson's $35 million a year. Take us through that article and you know what? There's Jamar Chase still. There's CeeDee Lamb. Tyreek Hill wants a new deal. That might not be the highest deal we see for a wide receiver.
No, because the next guy to come along, CeeDee Lamb, is going to want to get a little bit more than Justin Jefferson. And I don't know if he will be able to have the exact numbers to support a raise over what Justin Jefferson just got, or if he'll equal it or maybe be just a little below it or whatever. But he's going to come close. And it is pretty incredible that the receiver number has jumped to 35 for the top of the market. It is mind-blowing. I remember when Jared Goff and Carson Wentz were getting $33 and $35 million a year, and that number just boggled everyone's mind, and you just could not believe that amount. Now the quarterbacks, of course, are in the 50s. The top quarterbacks are getting at least $50 million a year, and suddenly Deshaun Watson's 46 doesn't look as eye-popping as it first did a couple of years ago. But $35 million for the receivers is just off the charts. And you're right, they got Jerry Jeudy for half of what Justin Jefferson is making, but they don't think he is half the player that Justin Jefferson is. They believe that Jerry Jeudy will begin to live up to his first-round potential, number 15 overall in 2020 in that star-studded class, when he has a consistent quarterback working with him all the time, a quarterback like Deshaun Watson who's going to get him the ball a lot, an offense that will maximize his skill set, and they're really, really excited about what he brings to the table. So they feel like they got a great bargain, and now it's up to Jerry Jeudy to go out and prove that he deserves even more than that somehow.
Do you think the wide receiver market will affect the ability of the Browns to kind of get a deal done with Amari Cooper? Just because Cooper, he's not going to get 35, but you can make the case that he should get a significant bump.
Well, it's interesting. Yes, you're right about that. I don't know how that is going to play out because Amari Cooper this year is making $23.77 million. And that's why the Browns had no qualms about paying him that amount of money, because they knew that the top of the market was going north of 30. They didn't mind paying him 24 because he is right up there with some of those guys. He made the Pro Bowl last year. He was amazing. He had the 200-yard game in Houston, and he just shows really no signs of slowing down, even though he will be turning 30 next month. Actually, June 17th, he will be turning 30. So, he might not get in the neighborhood of those guys, but he is going to want to get a raise, and we'll just have to see how that goes. If the Browns want to keep him around, they're probably going to have to pony up and pay him a little bit more than they would even want to.
So this one from your Hey Mary Kay again, and I'm curious. Do you think Jerry Jeudy could be primed to be a primary slot guy in 11 personnel? So that's basically, the one running back and the one tight end and 3 wide receivers. Do you think they use Elijah Moore more as a deep threat?
I don't know if it'll work out quite like that because Jerry Jeudy's really good, running downfield and playing on the outside, but he can play inside and Elijah can play outside. So I think the key with this receiving core is versatility. Even a guy like Cedric Tillman, who you would think has prototypical outside body size at 6'3", 215 or 20 or whatever he is. He's a typical outside size guy, but even he will be playing inside in this offense. So I think you're going to see a lot of mixing and matching. You're going to see a lot of 3 wides. You're going to see a lot of spread. And so you're going to have some guys inside and a couple guys outside. And I think everybody's going to get a chance to do a little bit of everything. And then as they go through the early part of the season, Ken Dorsey's going to figure out, and Kevin Stefanski will figure out, who shines and who excels in which roles. They probably aren't going to know that or nail that down until they get a few games into the season and they see how these guys respond to the contested catch this year, to the outside fade, to the inside routes. I mean, to the choice routes. I mean, there's just so many different things that are going to be happening, the motion and shifts that they're going to be doing this year. There's a lot of new stuff going on, and they're going to have to audition all these guys and figure out who does what best.
Gives them the ability to try to find matchups that they like. When you have those 3 guys, there's got to be somebody on the other side that's going to be like, oh, this is not a good matchup for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you have an inside guy that's not going to be able to cover a Cedric Tillman, then maybe you put Cedric Tillman inside in those situations. So it will be all about the matchups and who can exploit those matchups week by week. So I don't think you're going to see necessarily everybody in the same spot every single week.
This is interesting as well. Browns regular season point differential by year, and this one really surprised me. So last year, Browns were plus 34, meaning they scored 34 more points than they gave up. It's the first time since 2007 that the Browns had a point differential positive. So the first time since 2007 that they scored more points than they gave up. That's kind of eye-opening when you really sit down and digest it. They were plus 34, which was pretty good.
That was pretty good, and they did it without getting very many touchdown catches out of their receivers. And that is an area that they must improve on in this coming season. They've got to get more touchdown catches out of their guys. I think they will with Deshaun Watson manning the helm there. I really do think that that Jerry Jeudy will get some touchdown catches. I think Amari will get more than the 5 he had last year. I think Elijah will have more than the 2 that he had last year. So that's the area that they can mine and really try to open things up and be more explosive.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, Joel Bitonio will talk about the new offensive line coach. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Earlier this week, we heard from Joel Bitonio on the loss of offensive lineman Bill Callahan, how it will affect the Browns' run game, and what he knows about the new offensive line coach, Andy Dickerson.
No, I do appreciate Coach Callahan and what he did for us. I think he's a great O-line coach. But I have faith in Coach Dickerson, Roy, who we brought over from the Eagles. Coach Stefanski still, no matter what, I think he still has roots in the run game. And it might be a little bit different, like you said, a little more spread and a little bit, different ways we attack it if we're finishing the game running the ball. But I think we're still going to have an identity, when you invest in the O-line and we want to live up to being one of the better units in the league. I think there's going to be times where they're still going to be like, hey, you got Nick Chubb back there. You got a good O-line. Like, let's get a couple yards here. He's good. I think I told a story, but he worked me out coming out of college at Nevada. He was with the Rams. He came out. We had lunch or dinner. We did some board work. So I had a small relationship with him. Then obviously I've known him across the league he's been an assistant coach when Corbett was with him. So I talked to Corbett about him. And then obviously Poe's had him in Seattle. So it's good. He has a good energy. He brings some passion to the field. We're still working through an offense, and I haven't obviously been on the field with him yet, but so far it's been good when I've been in the meetings, and I've kind of picked his brain on some things.
And Mary Kay, we've talked about it. They're going to run the football still because they're that invested in the line, and that's one of the things Kevin Stefanski believes in. It's not like they're going to abandon the run.
No, not at all, especially not in the AFC North, especially not in November and December and January. So they will need to run the ball. And Kevin Stefanski is not going to go away from one of his core philosophies. He knows how it can help the quarterback. And Deshaun, of course, loves to have the run and to be supported by the running game. So they will be out running the ball again in full force. We just don't know exactly who's going to be running it when. We're not sure when Nick Chubb will be back, but there will be plenty of ground game this year.
So this is points off of turnover margin last year. So points scored minus points allowed off of turnovers. This is from Warren Sharp. Ravens were top, plus 68. Cowboys were second, plus 47. Buccaneers third, plus 39. The Browns were 29th at minus 47 points. Panthers were 30th, minus 53. Commanders, minus 64. Patriots, minus 66. And you look up, and Arizona was just above the Browns at minus 46. The Arizona, Panthers, Commanders, and Patriots had the 4 worst records in the NFL, which, again, it shows you the turnovers. Somehow the Browns found a way to, minimize them to become a playoff team. But the points they allowed off of turnovers, that's got to change.
Yeah, that does have to change. And remember, a lot of it was the fact that they were starting 5 different quarterbacks last year, and that just didn't help matters at all. And, the 2 young quarterbacks threw a fair amount of interceptions, and it just didn't serve them well. So Deshaun should be able to cut down on those this year. I don't think it's going to be as much of a problem, not nearly as much as it was last year.
So let's take a look at this. This is from Dog Pound Daily. 4 dream scenarios for the Browns in 2024. Number 4, the offensive line stays healthy. Number 3, Obo Okunrankwo hits his goal revealed earlier this offseason, trying to get double-digit sacks. He's trying to get that 10-sack mark in 2024. Number 2, Nick Chubb avoids the physically unable to perform list. And number 1, Deshaun Watson plays well for 17 games. I think all of those are important. I think if you told me Deshaun Watson is going to play in 17 games, I think the Browns are going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, they should be. Health is going to be such a key this season. If you look back to last season, it started right away in week 1 with Jack Conklin going down. Then you moved on to week 2 with Nick Chubb going down. And then in week 3, that is exactly when Deshaun Watson first got hurt. We don't know the extent to which he got hurt in week 3, but there's a good chance that there was probably some more going on in there than maybe just the strained rotator cuff that we knew about at that time. So boom, boom, boom. First 3 weeks of the season, you're down a number of really, really good guys, some of your best stars on the team, and then it just kind of kept going from there. So they have to have health on their side. If you want to accomplish your goals in the NFL, somehow, some way, you have to stay healthy. And hopefully for them, they're doing some things differently. I don't know what they're going to do. Many of these injuries were things that you just can't control. And we'll just have to see how it goes. It's not like all of them were muscle pulls or anything like that. These were serious injuries that they had no control over. Some of them were torn pecs. So that's what they have to do this year. If they want to get to the Super Bowl, they've got to get to the finish line strong.
So you've mentioned a double-digit sacker. Adding that on the line would be something. If Obo Okenronquo reaches 10, does that count?
Yes, that counts. They just need another guy that can do that, that can get home. And I keep telling myself I'm going to look up the statistics about what a sack on a drive does to the drive over a period of time. I know there are some numbers like that out there, and I really want to look at those because, we hear so often from the Browns that, it's not the sacks that matters, it's the pressures, But I think the sacks are pretty important too. I know the players think they're important. Why would Obo be hoping for double-digit sacks if they weren't vitally important? It's where they make their hay. It's where they make their money. It's where they can mess up a drive, and I think they're vitally important.
All right, before I let you go, this is from one of your Hey Mary case. How much of a difference do you think the Greenbrier made in terms of culture and production during the regular season last year?
I always say this. They made the playoffs, and they were happy to make the playoffs, and they went 11-6. But a couple of games in particular could have gone the other way. Jake Moody from the San Francisco 49ers, the rookie kicker, could have made the 41-yard game-winning kick at the end of that game instead of missing it. That's one loss right there. That brings you down to 10 victories. Then you go into Indianapolis. You have the Colts game where a couple of questionable calls went in the Browns' favor at the end of that game. Jim Irsay says he was told by the league office that those were bogus calls, should never have happened. If those don't happen and they lose that game, then you're down to 9 wins and you don't make the playoffs at all. So how do you discuss the culture that happened and the camaraderie that took place at the Greenbrier if you don't win those 2 games? It's tough to say. But I do know everybody seemed to enjoy it, to love it. We'll see how it goes this year.
Mary Kay Cabot, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Mary Kay.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, check her out. Always great Browns coverage in the pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as on the website, cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report, straight ahead. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys. I just wanted to say, the Browns seem to have some gems. I hope they get some sort of playing time. I know they got a lot of people ahead of them, but, in some games, I would like to see these guys go. Jamari Thrash, Amarion Brown, and Aiden Robbins. I think these guys are gems, and I'd like to know what you guys think of them. All right, that's all. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Fred Greetham. He's the senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, Thrash could earn some playing time if Robbins or Brown, those are both undrafted rookie free agents, it would have to take a lot for them to see the field. I don't think either one. Practice squad maybe for them? Just your thoughts?
Well, as we've talked about, Dave, this roster's pretty stacked. I mean, at least when you look at guaranteed contracts and you follow the money, there's somewhere over 40 players probably already spoken for roster spots. So it's going to be tough for guys to make the team. I would think any drafted player would have kind of the inside track. I even think it'll be tough for all the drafted players to make the team. With that said, that's what you want. You want to have depth. and you want to develop guys, I think absolutely practice squad is where you have to look at some of these guys. I think Jamari Thrash, has a chance, dependent on what he does in training camp in the preseason. I would think, barring injury, the top three are etched in Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore. Right now, I would say the inside track would be Cedric Tillman at number 4. And then the fifth receiver would be either David Bell or Thrash or any of, Amarian Brown or any of the holdovers from last year. I don't know if they'll keep 6 wide receivers if you count James Proche or Proche. He's a return guy. But it's going to be difficult to make the team. I think they have their best chance of practice squad. You have to almost look at it as like a 69-man roster with 53 on the 53-man roster and then a 16 practice squad. They'll have 90 going to training camp. Even there's 21 that you have to part ways with. I think Amarian Brown, they obviously like him. Reports are that he got like upwards of $150,000 to sign with the Browns. That usually means that, they did that with AJ Green when they signed him, and they've done that with several guys. But Jamari Thrash, they drafted him in the 5th round, so he's going to get a very hard, long look, more so, I would think, than Brown. So obviously injuries can factor, but Robbins, same thing. I see a good chance on the practice squad, but you wanted to see him get playing time. These guys are going to play in a lot of preseason games. This is what this year's going to be about, these first 3 or the 3 preseason games. I think you're going to see a lot of these type of players, and this is where they make or break. Frankly, the final preseason game, we all know very few guys do you even see in the regular season playing that last game, and that's where 1 or 2 of them makes the team that are in these positions, the undrafted guys and the rookies and so forth. So, yeah, I think that's what you want, is to have a new wave and maybe catch lightning in a bottle with a guy. And I think they're all going to get their chances in the preseason, training camp, and so forth.
Yeah, that's what happens on good teams. The undrafted free agents, practice squad, and you try to develop them. I know you wrote an article, Elijah Moore, talking about this year's offense, and he thinks it's going to be a little bit more explosive. Take us through that and what you put in that article, what you found out.
Well, there's always hope springs eternal. They talked about that a little last year, with Alex Van Pelt, and they were going to tweak things and change things. And we saw some glimpses down at Greenbrier at training camp. It looked like they were going to really use Elijah Moore a lot. He was motion. He was out of the backfield, running the ball. And we got to the regular season, and it didn't really take off. A lot of that had to do with Deshaun Watson really never got on track health-wise, from the 3rd game on the rest of the year. And so I think part of it's hope springs eternal, but I think that was the number one task brought in by Ken Dorsey, was to change the overall look of the offense. It's still Kevin Stefanski's offense, but I think what Ken Dorsey's doing is bringing in more of a spread look. I think Deshaun Watson, anybody would agree, what he did in Houston was a little bit more of a read and react or choice routes, get the ball out quick, spread the field, maybe 3, 4, 5 receivers. And I think that's what Moore's talking about, is that you spread things out and maybe you have 3 receivers at least on the field. There's going to be a lot more chances for everybody, and just get the ball to the open guy quick and let them make plays. And so I think that's the plan. A lot of it, again, depends on Deshaun Watson and staying on the field and so forth. But I really think that's where they're going, is want him to do more what he did in Houston, where get the ball out quick little 5, 6, 7 yards, once in a while go deep, but get the ball out to your playmakers, whether it be Cooper, Jeudy, Njoku, Moore, and everybody has a much better chance to have better numbers, because it's kind of like even you look at the Chiefs when they had wide receivers that didn't really, have big names. They all had good numbers because you had a good quarterback getting them the ball. And I think a lot of that comes back. And they're just trying to put Watson in a position to get the ball out quickly and use his mobility factor to spread the field and so forth.
The other thing we heard from Ken Dorsey talking about Deshaun Watson, I know you wrote an article. He likes what he's seen so far. Take us through that and what you found out in talking to Ken Dorsey.
Well, he's seen a little more than we have because we only have seen Watson throw one time because the first open availability when they were on the field was his off day. So last week we saw him throw, but still you have to understand it's not at full speed. He was doing the individual drills. I saw him throw a ball 30, 40 yards down the field on a sideline route. That's what Ken Dorsey was alluding to. But he wasn't really what you would say letting it rip as far as like a fastball, like as hard as he could throw it. Not that they do that much at this time of the year. But when they went to 7-on-7s or 11-on-11s, Jameis Winston and Tyler Huntley took over. So we haven't really seen him at the full speed, but he has seen him every day. And he alluded to that one or two throws where he threw it downfield, down the sideline, which takes a little more oomph to get it down there. And he looks very effortlessly like he did last year. So, I'm sure Dorsey's just seeing him. He's seeing him pretty much every day, whereas we're only seeing him once a week. So, I think that he's learning and he's trying to install his offense with a quarterback that's really not up to speed. And I don't know if it's really that Watson really needs more time to heal. I just think they're just holding him back. He's jumping at the bit, and they're saying, why do we want you to get ramped up and unnecessarily let it loose when you don't need to at this time of the year?
Yeah, nothing big happens in May in the NFL without question. All right, or June as the case may be. And this one I'm also kind of curious. You think there's a guy that you think could be the biggest under-the-radar proven playmaker that the Browns added to the offense this season, and it's a guy that not a lot of guys are talking about, Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, he missed all last year after a jet ski accident in August. He was with the Bills. And all I knew about him was he's a premier kick return. You all remember him, that long kick return after the Damar Hamlin return to the field or after his injury scare, his heart scare for a touchdown. And he missed all last year. But I knew he was with the Colts, but he pointed out his numbers. Besides being a top kick punt returner, is he had about 200, I think he's got 252 career catches in 5 years out of the backfield. That's over about 50 catches a year. And if he can add that dynamite third down back, because I don't think Dante Foreman's going to be that guy. Nick Chubb, we don't know if they're going to start the season, but Jerome Ford obviously can catch the ball. But even if Ford's the first, second down back or Foreman, I think Hines really has a good chance to be that third down guy. And I think you could see Deshaun Watson throw a lot of swing passes to him out in the flats. 50 catches a year is a pretty good number. That would put him one of the top receivers on the Browns in recent years. So obviously Jerry Jeudy's the premier addition, but the new guys, most everybody thought Hines was signed just to be a kick returner. And he'll probably do that, and that would fill a big role because if you remember, they went out and got a Pro Bowl kick returner, Jakeem Grant, who missed both years with injuries. And so Hines is coming off a big injury. He's got 4.37 speed before the injury. That's his game. If he's able to be in that, get back to where he was, I think he'll be a great kick returner. But I think they look at him, and he said one of the reasons he came to the Browns was because Ken Dorsey was part of the when the Bills traded for Hines at the trade deadline to get him in the backfield to catch passes. And so I think they have that in mind. And if he can get on the field in training camp, we'll get a good chance to see that. And I think that would be a weapon that most fans weren't really expecting. Obviously, if Nick Chubb's out there, but you still had a third down guy. Last year it was Kareem Hunt, short yardage and so forth. This guy can run, but he can catch passes. He's really prolific at catching passes out of the backfield as well as a return guy.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside to a quick timeout. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, love the show. Quick question. Do you see any scenario where Jed Wills is not the starting left tackle this season? Not that I mind. I just was curious, because I felt like Christian played well last year. And then secondly, they signed all the running backs in the offseason. Why do they continue to not bring back Kareem Hunt? I mean, they brought in Foreman. He's basically an older version of Kareem Hunt. Like, they are both run with, bad intentions and run strong in the hole, but I feel like they're the same back, just he's a little bit older maybe. I'm just curious as to why he had a great season with the Browns and they continue to not bring him back. Just want to hear your thoughts. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Fred, I don't think unless Jedrick Wills is hurt, I think Jedrick Wills will be the starting left tackle unless he can't come back from the injury. Relative to Kareem Hunt, I think that was a mutual. I don't think Kareem Hunt really wanted to come back. And I believe Foreman's actually a little younger than Hunt is as well.
Yeah, on Jedrick Wills, I mean, they picked up his fifth-year option. I believe it's $15 million, and that $13 to $15 million for this year. You don't pay a guy that and have him sit on the bench. The only scenario that I would see him not starting would be if they decided to move DeJuan Jones to left tackle and that Jack Conklin is coming back to be the right tackle, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I know there's a lot of talk about Jedrick Wills and a lot of fans aren't happy with him, but the Browns continually stand behind him. They picked up the option. They would have to trade him, to move on, but they would have to have another suitor pick up that option and somebody that really wanted to extend him, or the Browns would have to eat a lot of the contract, kind of like they did with Baker Mayfield when they traded him to Carolina. So he's the starting tackle this year, and they could still move on from him and decide not to sign him to a long-term extension. But I think that they are proceeding with him. The only scenario, again, would be is they signed a couple one-year veteran guys to back up at tackle, but I think that he's your left tackle. As far as Kareem Hunt, he had he had 11 touchdowns, 9 regular season, 2 in the playoffs, short yardage back. They gave him the ball down when they were near the goal line, but you have to look at his numbers last year. He averaged 3.0 yards per carry. That might have been the lowest of his career. And he is still available. Last year, nobody signed him, and he was still available when Nick Chubb got hurt, and he came right in. He was a nice fit. You're right, the Dante Foreman was his replacement. He's a short yardage back. He's a smaller or a younger version, and they think he can do that 1-year deal. I think signing Hines and Foreman to one-year deals, this kind of bodes well that they feel Chubb, has a future here with the Browns. They redid his contract, gave him a lot of incentives, and one of the writers on our staff said that points to Chubb being better earlier than later because he took a $10 million cut in pay. Obviously, the money wasn't guaranteed, but with incentives turned back. And he pointed out almost all of them are attainable if he plays the majority of the season, as early as the first 4 weeks. And, he probably, or his agent wouldn't have let him sign that if they didn't feel those were attainable. I've been told that Chubb's goal is to be ready for the first week. But no matter what he says, I still think the Browns would probably err and hold him out at least of the first few weeks, even if he's ready. But it's a lot of speculation. I mean, he was at the golf tournament. Guys I talked to said he was walking around, and so forth. But it's a big difference being ready to play. And so I think it's optimistic. I think that they were happy with Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong and Kareem Hunt. You replaced Kareem Hunt with Nyheim Hines and Dante Foreman. So right now you have more of a pass-catching running back and a between-the-tackle running back. So I think between those two, that's your replacement of Kareem Hunt. And if you have more injuries, Kareem Hunt is still available.
Yeah,
and I looked at the list, and there was still some pretty notable names available. And I think a lot of those guys are waiting to see what happens in training camp with a lot of positions. I've said this roster is not finished. There's going to be injuries, and Shelby Harris turned out to be the best defensive tackle maybe on the team last year, and he didn't come in till the third week of training camp last year.
And I'm told Hunt and Foreman are basically 28, so they're basically the same age. Brian, our producer, quick to look that up. All right. So this is from Ian Hartitz, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying. He's saying, not necessarily saying that he expects Nick Chubb to be ready week 1 by any stretch, but the Browns only added Hines and Foreman on cheap one-year deals the entire offseason. Feels like there would be more urgency if they didn't expect him to be RB1 sooner rather than later. And that, again, is Ian Hartitz. And that's probably a fair estimation. To your point, the Browns are sitting back, Andrew Berry's sitting back saying, let's see what we have in Nick Chubb before we go out and sign somebody else at that position.
Well, you go out, and I don't know, it seemed like, I think Hunt got a little more than what Foreman. And so, he's been here, and a lot of it comes down to dollars and cents. I think Foreman signed a 1-year, maybe veteran minimum type deal, so there are, and I do think Kareem Hunt, he did very well last year for the Browns, but I think that he's got a little more tread on the tires than, say, maybe a Foreman. But with that being said, yes, they look at it, and Nick Chubb came before this current regime, and Nick Chubb is a generational type talent. But I don't know if going forward after Nick Chubb, if this regime, as it's currently constituted, will use a first or second round pick and go after a premier running back. They feel like you can get 3 or 4 or 5 guys in a committee and rotate it around. They traded for Pierre Strong. They feel pretty good about him. And like I said, and you got Nyheim Hines and you got Dante Foreman, you got Jerome Ford. So you got 4 guys right there that you feel can battle. And at middle or to the end of training camp, and they feel like Chubb's not ready and they don't like what they see, they can go get somebody. But it's going to be more of a committee than to have a premier back who goes down and you're done because you lost your bell cow.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about free agents and a burning question for each AFC North team. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. This from CBSSports.com. Notable free agents to watch now. So after the post-June 1 cuts, they go wide receiver Hunter Renfrow. Injuries dinged him late in his Raiders run. When active as a slot receiver, fairly reliable, posting 74.1% catch rate for his career. Also played at Clemson with Deshaun Watson. Secondly, wide receiver Michael Thomas has played just 20 games the last 4 seasons. Fairly effective when healthy in 2023. Still boasts solid size and a perimeter target. And then they also say wide receiver Jamal Agnew entering season. NFL is set to roll out completely overhauled kickoff play, incentivizing returns. His extensive experience as a return man could be valuable. They had Logan Thomas, tight end, on this, and he signed yesterday with the 49ers. Fred, I don't think the Browns are interested in wide receivers. I think they want to see – they're not interested right now. They want to see the young guys. They have a host of young receivers they're trying to sort out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you draft one in the 5th round, you're stockpiling and hoping to catch lightning in a bottle, with Jamari Thrash or Amarian Brown. And like I said, even Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore are young. They're like 23, 24, 25. Back at the beginning, before offseason, I wrote a story saying the top 6 needs for the Browns to get back to the playoffs. Number 1 I had was a veteran wide receiver trading for. And I had a couple guys in mind. I had Jerry Jeudy as the 3rd option. That's what they did. They traded for Jerry Jeudy. He's more of a potential than been there, done it, as opposed to like Amari Cooper was a proven commodity that you were able to bring in. And so Judy's kind of this year's version of Elijah Moore. You hope he has more upside, but they feel good about him. They gave him an extension. Kind of, as you can see lately, how many wide receivers are getting paid big contracts. I think Justin Jefferson just broke the bank yesterday, and there's going to be a lot of free agents and wide receiver. So you have those 3, and then you have Cedric Tillman. They are very high on him. I talked to Andrew Berry about that in an off season, and he said I asked him if he felt like he could be their 3 receiver or 4, and he said absolutely. They feel real good about it. And so I think right now he's going to be at least the 4th receiver and maybe push more to be the 3rd. And then you have David Bell and Jamari Thrash, Amarian Brown, Michael Woods, a guy they drafted who missed all last year with injury, has put on some pounds. I've seen him in the offseason program, looks pretty good. So there's going to be a battle. Now, a lot can change. When they get to training camp, I always keep saying this, but it's so true. Injuries, or after this upcoming mini camp, the mandatory mini camp, they'll get to look at everybody they have. There's about 6-8 weeks before training camp at any position, but at wide receiver, they'll all look at it. The wide receiver coaches, overall offense coordinator, Ken Dorsey, Kevin, and they'll say, we're good. Let's go to camp with this, guys. Or they'll say, no, let's go get Hunter Renfrow now. Or they may see another guy, Michael Thomas, or they could do that during training camp. I keep pointing it out. A few years ago, they went out and signed Malcolm Smith, a linebacker, 30-something linebacker, middle to late training camp. He ended up being the 2nd leading tackler on the team. Last year, Shelby Harris. There are guys on lists right now they know they could probably go get them. They're going to look at what they have and then react if the guys aren't adding up or the injuries occur. Last year, I know what happened. They got to Greenbrier. Jim Schwartz said, I need a little bit more at defensive tackle. They went and got Shelby Harris off of the short list. And now, they brought him back with a 2-year extension. He's like 31 or 32. So there's guys like that at wide receiver, linebacker, tight end that I think they will look at. But I think a Hunter Renfrow, I think he caught the national championship pass from Deshaun Watson, played with him at Clemson. I think they know that. And so I'm sure he's on their list, but unless they feel they're going to lose the guy, they don't want to just move on from a young guy right now without seeing what they have at all these positions.
So this is from CBSSports.com as well. Burning questions for each AFC North team. For the Browns, will Deshaun Watson return to Pro Bowl form? And this is written by Brian Diardo. I do believe he will play at a relatively high level at a consistent basis for the first time since coming to Cleveland. Watson's play during his most recent game gives me confidence. Despite playing with serious shoulder injury, ultimately led to season-ending surgery, completed each of his 14 pass attempts in the second half while leading the Browns to a comeback win over the Ravens in Week 10. Hey, look at that, Fred. A national writer who actually watched a little bit and is given a little bit an unbiased thing. Again, if Deshaun Watson is healthy with this offense, I'm not saying he's going to be throwing for 4,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. I think he will be the kind of quarterback the Browns thought they were getting when they traded for him.
Well, absolutely, because of the price, because of what they gave up, expectations, I get it, are way up there. The biggest thing for him is staying on the field. I mean, he's played 11 part of 12 games, I think, since he's been here. And last year, I thought he was getting it going in that third game with the Titans. I keep saying that. He threw for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. It would have been well over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, but a inadvertent whistle when they said Amari Cooper stepped out of bounds when he clearly didn't, took away 40 more yards and a touchdown. But we find out he might have broken that bone in that game. But even if he didn't, whatever happened with the shoulder started in that third game. He tried to keep it quiet and not really tell anybody and keep playing, and we all know what happened. He'd play a little, he'd be out. He'd play, and he never really could get on track. That last game he played, we all know he played second half, 14 for 14, threw a touchdown, led the Browns to a comeback win over the Ravens. Find out after the game he did have a broken bone in his shoulder. He also had a high ankle sprain. And I think I heard a report that he realized in that game he couldn't do everything that he felt like he wanted to do. And he just took what the defense gave him, and it was pretty successful. So I think that will be his mantra. And I think, if anything, a silver lining is that he might have learned that lesson, that if in this offense, if they just do quick passes, take what the defense gives you, you can stay on the field, keep yourself out of harm, and you don't have to take off running all the time. And I think that could bode well. So I don't think he has to be elite for the Browns to get to the playoffs. I just think he has to be above average, middle of the pack, a little above it, like Baker Mayfield I felt was. But if the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl, I think he needs to, somewhere in the playoffs, get more to a top 12, top 10 quarterback. If you look at last year, the final 4 teams all had their franchise quarterback, in those games. And I just think he needs to stay on the field. The Browns haven't had a quarterback throw for 30 touchdowns since 1980 when Brian Sipe. Even the great year Baker Mayfield had when they went to the playoffs, he had 26 touchdowns. Even with a 17-game schedule, just about 2 touchdown passes a game gets you to like 34 touchdowns. He just has to stay on the field. I can't emphasize that enough. I think his numbers, even extrapolated out in the 11, 12 games he played, or would be pretty good numbers. So I think his health is the number one issue. And again, I saw a ranking the other day from a national guy, had him like 28th or something, or in the, and I'm like, I just don't get it. If when he plays, he might not be Patrick Mahomes, but he sure was better than 28th in the games that he was, that Baltimore game. That's a pretty good team. Baltimore at that time, everybody thought was going to the Super Bowl, and he led that against that defense to a come from behind victory. So we'll see, but he's got to stay on the field.
I'm with you. The most important ability is availability at this point. Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Always fun, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. It's always really good stuff with the Orange and Brown Report. The Greetham angle, he is the senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4.